The Supreme Court has issued two decisions related to the Biden administration's vaccine mandates. Remember, there were challenges that were heard just about a week ago in the Supreme Court, and this is what the Supreme Court has just come down with. They have blocked that vaccine mandate that applied to large employers with 100 people or more. This was a vaccine mandate that effectively went into effect on Monday, just the masking portion of it, and the vaccine portion of that mandate was supposed to go into effect February 9th. Now that mandate is completely blocked. This is a mandate that would have affected about 80 million workers across the United States at large employers. Businesses had said to the Supreme Court, you need to block this. The agency does not have the power. That's OSHA. They do not have the power to put this mandate into effect. The Supreme Court agreeing with them. So that mandate is blocked. On the other hand, there was also another mandate that the Supreme Court was looking at. This was for healthcare workers, affecting about 10 million people. It was put into effect by Health and Human Services. The justices during arguments indicated that that might be okay, and turns out the justices saying that mandate is okay. So we have a bit of a mix here for the Biden administration. They wanted this mandate that arguably affected a lot more people, about 70 million more people, to be allowed to go into effect, but it will not. Large employers now no longer have to enforce this mandate that their employees had to wear masks for the time being, and beginning in February had to be vaccinated. That mandate has been blocked by the Supreme Court. Now, granted, the legal challenges are going to continue to play out in the lower courts on the merits of this case, but the Supreme Court was acting here to immediately block that mandate. On the flip side, healthcare workers will have to get vaccinated, again affecting about 10 million healthcare workers. And the difference here, guys, is in the agencies that are administering this and the powers that they have as related to certain workers. The justices indicated in oral argument that the federal government, OSHA, the agency, could not put this mandate into effect so widespread for all of these businesses with 100 or more employees. It was just beyond the power of OSHA. It was maybe something that Congress had the power to do, but in this case, an agency had acted. And we've seen from the Supreme Court, these conservative justices very skeptical of agency power. So that's why that mandate has been blocked. On the other hand, the healthcare mandate applies to healthcare workers at healthcare facilities, hospitals, and otherwise that get federal funding, Medicaid, Medicare. And the justices here saying that because it gets federal funding, the Biden administration does have the power to enforce, enact this mandate for healthcare workers. So we've been waiting for this ruling, this decision, for the past week. The Biden administration has been waiting for this. The White House has been waiting for this. And Allison and Victor, they've got a bit of a mixed bag here. The bigger mandate that would have affected more workers won't go into effect. The smaller mandate that affects about 10 million healthcare workers will go into effect. Guys.
Jessica, really helpful on helping us to understand all of this. Let's bring in senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. So, as Jessica was just saying, split decision, do either of these surprise you?
No, Allison. The key question in both of these cases, both of these mandates is the mandate too broad, and who gets to decide? Now, on the bigger mandate, the vaccine or test mandate applicable to all businesses of 100 or more employees across the country. If you listen to those arguments, I listened to them last week, the conservative majority on the court clearly felt that the mandate was too broad, that it was not tailored to any particular industry, that it applied regardless of local conditions or what other precautions a business might have taken. And the conservative majority seemed to be of the view that this is not up to an agency, as Jessica said. This is not the kind of thing OSHA can do within its powers unless Congress specifically authorizes them to do it. And it should be up, according to the conservative majority, to the states and to localities. This is not something for the federal government. So the bigger mandate, the nationwide mandate for large employers, is blocked. Now, on the other mandate, requiring vaccines for healthcare workers who do business with the government in any capacity that receives Medicare or Medicaid, which is essentially every medical capacity, that's much narrower. And the court there seemed to be persuaded by the fact that, well, well, now we're just talking about people in a very specific industry, a very specific field, a field that obviously has a direct tie to COVID and a direct need to have this kind of sort of more aggressive action by the federal government. So I think that's how you understand why the Supreme Court struck down the bigger, broader one, but allowed the more focused, more narrow mandate to stay in place.
All right, we're just getting this as we learn more from this decision from the court. It is not our role to weigh such trade-offs. In our system of government, that is the responsibility of those chosen by the people through democratic processes, that from the majority. Jessica, let me come back to you. And I know this is early on, this is just breaking, but do we know if this decision came down along ideological lines? 6-3 in these the first decision on the large company mandate?
Yeah, I have to check on the vote count, but we do
That's
know
okay.
that it was, 5-4 for one of these decisions. So I'm going to have to get back to you because I just came on the air so quickly, didn't get a chance to totally hone in on that. But it does look like, 5-4 in one of these decisions. But, I'll get back to you on that, Victor.
Understood, because there was the question of where Chief Justice Roberts would fall on this,
Right.
As he often in these cases there are questions about on which side he will fall.
Yeah, and he was, Victor, during these arguments, specifically as it pertains to OSHA, that larger mandate for employers with 100 employers or more, he was sort of weighing the arguments on both sides. But where it came down, he seemed much more inclined to block that mandate. He talked about the fact that this would be something that Congress would have to explicitly tell OSHA that they could do. I mean, he said, wouldn't this just be unprecedented? This is something we've never seen before, that OSHA would implement this sort of mandate. So he did express skepticism, but then was also trying to understand the other side as well.
Yeah, I mean, and Ellie, as you point out, not surprising. This is as we all would expect in terms of conservatives thinking that it should be up to elected officials and states.
Yeah, Allison, in a way, listening to the argument felt like a throwback to the sort of the old days when conservatives were skeptical of federal power and more in favor of states' rights, and liberals were more in favor of sort of the regulatory state and agency action. And you could hear that in the justice's questioning. And the quote that Victor just put up on the screen and read, I think reflects that sort of concern, where the Supreme Court in that quote is saying it shouldn't be up to unelected officials at OSHA or other federal agencies. This really should be up to Congress. The proper role of Congress is to say, okay, executive branch, whether it's OSHA or any other agency, we hereby empower you to take a certain action or a certain type of action. Now, OSHA does have the power to issue certain regulations if there is a, quote, grave danger. And the liberal justices at this argument said, well, of course this is a grave danger. This is a once-in-a-century pandemic. But the conservative justices plainly seem to disagree.
And guys, these justices, the conservatives, have been very skeptical of agency power. We saw it just a few months ago when the Biden administration tried to hold on to that eviction moratorium, citing the pandemic and the emergency conditions of the pandemic. The justices in that case, just a few months ago, struck that down, saying that the CDC just didn't have the power to issue an eviction moratorium. So this is in line with what we've seen from these conservative justices, just a few months ago during the pandemic.
Yeah, certainly a blow to the strategy from the Biden administration. What we should point out that many of the largest companies in this country have already enacted vaccine mandates that cover tens of millions of Americans. Jessica Schneider, Ellie Honig, thank you both.